Welcome back. It is episode 6 of Bando's Breakdown. My name is Zain Bando, your host, and thank you again for tuning in. Uh, Please be sure, before we get started with this podcast today, please be sure to subscribe to the Empty the Bench Podcast Network on YouTube, as we are slowly but surely approaching 1,000 subscribers there. So if you like the content that you've seen today from me in the last 5-6 weeks or so, as well as other content across the network, be sure to like and subscribe, hit the notification bell. That way you don't get notified of that way you will get notified of everything here at the network, as well as my show, the MMA Outsiders, and so much more. You can follow the ETP Network at ETP Network on Instagram, Facebook, and so much more. You can also follow the show, this very show, at Bando's Breakdown on Instagram and Twitter, as well as on TikTok too. I'm going to be expanding my TikTok presence a lot more, so be sure to find exclusive clips that you won't be able to find anywhere else from this show and various aspects regarding the show as well. You can follow me at Bando99. I'm a sports journalist and an ETB Network host for several different places. And you can find all of my work across all of the different outlets where I do lots of work across the four major sports, as well as combat sports. You can follow me on Twitter at Zambando99, or on X rather. And before we get more into the show and the topics that we're going to go over today, just wanted to remind you all that, like every single show on this network, this podcast is presented by Playback, and we're going to get into a little bit more of what Playback actually is. It has been a very huge benefit across the entire NBA postseason. So, presented by Playback, watching sports is more fun with others, but we spend too much of our time watching alone. Playback is a virtual space where communities can stream live sports together with everyone perfectly synced up. Creators can hop on stage, deliver their own play-by-play analysis and commentary, and invite viewers up for Q&A. Playback makes watching sports fully interactive and a social experience. From playing fantasy sports, repping your favorite players and teams, and watching with the commentators and communities you care about, win or lose, sports are best enjoyed together. Join our community by going to playback.tv/TTB Network for more, including our live stream schedule. And for those of you who know, the Eastern Conference side of the NBA Finals is set with the Boston Celtics' sweep of the Indiana Pacers, and they are still awaiting the potential winner between the Dallas Mavericks and Minnesota Timberwolves, as the Dallas Mavericks currently have a commanding 3-0 lead at the time that I am recording this. Just wanted to remind you, too, before we get started, that you can listen to Bando's Breakdowns wherever you get your podcasts. And for those of you who are listening on the audio-only platforms, be sure to come to our YouTube home to do the inverse of exactly that. Well, we're going to get started with the show today. Welcome. And as you all know, this is the one show a week where you're going to get me and me only, and my unfiltered takes in the world of sports between 30 and 45 minutes. So without further ado, we're going to get into what topics we are going to be discussing today. It's a lot of different stuff. As per usual, just kind of the order we're going to go in. We're going to do Zan's overview first. Then we're going to do Zan's Zinger. Then we're going to do Zan's look ahead. Then we're going to look at my errors, and then we're going to get out of here and call it a day. So moving right into Zan's overview here, we're going to go into the NHL and NBA postseason results. I kind of just hinted at it a little while ago, but it's been a pretty interesting postseason so far. We are in the conference final stage for the NBA and the NHL, as I just alluded to. The Boston Celtics swept the Indiana Pacers a couple of nights ago in Indianapolis. Game 4 final score was 105-102. The Pacers were up by as much as 9 late in the second half, and they couldn't finish the game. And quite possibly, this could be one of the easiest NBA Finals runs for the Boston Celtics. And just in general, in the last several years, they've really had no trouble with any of the teams that they faced so far. And then over on the Western Conference side, you have a Dallas Mavericks team that's just playing out of their minds. They're not playing like they're a fifth seed at the moment. They're playing like they are the best team in the West. And Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving have just been showing off at this point. Minnesota just has simply made too many mental errors in a lot of these games, and could have very easily won maybe two of these games earlier in the series, but it's just late game turnovers, bad ball management, bad clock management, not using timeouts properly, and just kind of letting Dallas's best players get open in space. That's a huge deficit and turn off to have to overcome. But this Mavericks team is playing very well. They're playing like a very elusive team, and they're a very physical team. Boston is great, is great everywhere, but to me, this Dallas team has scores from all angles. They can wreak havoc, and I feel like Boston is just one of these teams that knows how to overcome deficits, and so does Dallas. There's been a couple of huge double digit deficits in the NBA postseason involving these two teams, and assuming it is the NBA Finals matchup for 2024, I think we're going to be in for a treat. And speaking of the NBA Finals, I just wanted to give you guys a quick rundown of what the current schedule is going to look like. So, according to Google, the schedule is already halfway filled in. Of course, Celtics versus the winner of Mavericks Timberwolves. Game one will take place Thursday, June 6th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, followed by game two on Sunday, June 9th at 8 p.m. Eastern. Um, and and of course, and then of course, game three, assuming that the schedule stays put, is going to be June 17th at 7:30 p.m. Eastern. A potential, I guess I haven't gone through the other dates, but a potential game three date, if any of the series are extended, would be June 20th at 8:30 p.m. Eastern, and then game four, because that's all we know for the moment, because the second of the series has not been played yet, will be June 23rd at 8 p.m. Eastern. So that's an outlook on the NBA Finals schedule. Again, every single game of the NBA Finals is going to air live and exclusively on ABC, which means you don't need extra subscriptions. You don't need an extra cable box. You literally only need your TV, potentially an antenna or just basic cable to watch the NBA Finals. And if you guys have watched the brief history of the show so far, you know how I feel about streaming services and the oversaturation of that. I think there's too many streaming services to keep up with, and I think it's an interesting feat when you have the NBA Finals airing on the same network for every single game. So anybody who has the most basic of cable will get to watch the best basketball on the planet, considering that it is for the rightful championship. Moving right along to the Stanley Cup postseason Eastern and Western Conference Finals, we have the New York Rangers taking on the Florida Panthers, and after dropping Game One in a shutout, the Rangers have rallied back and won two critical games in overtime. These first three games of the series have been unbelievable. These are two of the best goaltenders in hockey, two of the most physically imposing and defensive teams in all of hockey, and to me, this is all the makings of a 6 or 7 game series. As we know, the New York Rangers are the President's Trophy winners. And then, of course, the Florida Panthers have kind of come out of nowhere as one of these teams that, isn't really in the biggest of markets, but they have guys, with Stanley Cup postseason experience. And it's definitely been a very fun series so far. So stay tuned for more games there, as I think it has the potential to go deep. And then the Dallas Stars over on the other side, Central Division champions, taking on Conor McDavid and the Edmonton Whalers. Huge rally a couple of nights ago to win on the road in a very tough environment. And this Dallas team, they're scrappy. They've got a lot. They got a lot of nice veterans. They have a lot of young core pieces as well. They're a team that, just kind of finds ways to win and finds openings and just does what they need to do. And if you could shut down the best player in Edmonton, and I'm not saying that Edmonton is only a one man team, but if you can stop Connor McDavid, you're more than likely set up for success. So you could very well see that series end in 5 or 6 games as well. And it very well looks like the Dallas Stars could potentially be on their way to their first Stanley Cup final appearance in a couple of years. I think it's been since, he did make it 2 years ago, and they did make it one other time during the COVID pandemic, and then they haven't won the Stanley Cup final since '99. So it's been quite a while. ever since the Stars have won the Stanley Cup. But it's definitely an interesting feat considering that the only huge market team still left is the New York Rangers. So speaking of the Stanley Cup Finals schedule, at least what we know of it. So as of let's see, there would be as of Sunday, according to ProHockeyRumors.com. That's the direct source for which I'm getting this from. Not going to give you the networks here because they aren't listed, and I don't want to speak out of turn. I know that TNT and ESPN and ABC will have the rights to the games, but we're just going to go through what the schedule could look like. So game one will take place June 8th. Game two will take place June 10th. 3 days later, you're going to get game three. 2 days later, you get game four. That's June 15th. Game three was June 13th for context there. Game five, if necessary, June 18th. Game six, June 21st. And then a potential winner take all game seven, June 24th. Reading from the article here, home ice will be determined once the eventual finalists are through the conference finals. Of the four teams in the conference finals, only the Edmonton Oilers are unable to get home ice advantage as they finish with the fewest points in the regular season. Typically, the higher seeded team would have home ice advantage. However, in the Stanley Cup Finals, home ice advantage goes to which team had a better regular season record, which means if the New York Rangers make the Stanley Cup Final, more than likely Madison Square Garden will be the site of games 1, 2, 5, and 7, and so much more. So that is a postseason outlook for the NBA and NHL. And now we're gonna move on to a little bit of a different topic. It's related to major sports news. If you want to talk about a sports championship, the closest thing to a sports championship on the combat sports side the last couple of weeks was the Tyson Fury Alexander Usyk undisputed heavyweight championship fight. And for those of you who know, the fight took place in Saudi Arabia, which means it aired in the afternoon in the United States. And it came out by several sources, including Daily Mirror Online in the United Kingdom, confirmed by Boxing Scene and a couple other sources, that Tyson Fury Alexander Usyk was a highly illegally streamed fight. You have to remember the fight cost $69.99 in the United States to purchase, and the event lasted 8 hours. That is another that is another rant I'll get to here in a couple of minutes because I was genuinely disappointed to find out that was the case, that the event took 8 hours. But 20 million people. There was a bit of some research done by a couple of piracy experts, and it was revealed that 20 million people illegally streamed the fight. DAZN put out a statement saying that they lost $120 million in revenue because of this, and they reminded everyone that piracy is theft, and that if you want to be able to watch your favorite sport, don't run the risk of ruining it for the rest of us. And I'm just going to say this: I think, being the combat sports consumer that I am, um, I think that with how good the fights are these days, fight fans deserve better. You could say boxers are overpaid. You could say whatever you want, but that's the biggest heavyweight fight in 20 years. And for some people, it was unaffordable. And I personally think it's disappointing that you're going to discount the fans that actually care about the sport and don't want to miss a single fight. They are going to revert to ways that may not be as conventional. And I think if some of these streaming services, created packages where, you buy the service, for example, and you get, you could pick the pay-per-views you want included in your package, or you buy another service where it's a flat fee up front and you get everything. But these services want to make as much money as possible, and we're left in a situation like this. I think even though DAZN is defending themselves, they're defending the brand, rightfully so. They're a direct competitor with ESPN Plus, although they sometimes do collaborate on various fights, this one being one of them. You have to look at it from the grand scheme of things and say that it's 2024. We're going into June of 2024. Streaming is the present, streaming is the future. I've said it on the show many times. You need to figure out a way to please the fans, and going after people where all they wanted to do was see the fight in any way possible while spending the least amount of money. I don't think it's too much to ask for the fans' demands to be met, or just put more fights on TV. Well, the fight aired on regular TV in the United Kingdom. That seemed to work out well. It aired on regular TV in other places. I think Mexico had it. I'm pretty sure too. Like you can put these fights on regular TV, in other countries, and I don't think people would bat an eye about it. So I mean, I think this is something that DAZN needs to really figure out. DAZN needs to, say like, okay, or what can we do differently to ensure that this doesn't happen again? Because this doesn't happen by accident. DAZN should have been expecting this with every major fight. There's always numbers and impulses of legal streamers that go up. I mean, shoot, every single Conor McGregor fight has some sort of an ESPN Plus outage if you try to buy it, and their customer support is of no help. So truly, I think these services that air these major fights need to really think about, if they're really pleasing the consumer, because you can't just have a situation where you go in and you purchase a fight and the fight doesn't work, or it works but it works all the way up until the main event. There needs to be another way. So even though they they did something that was unethical, quote unquote. There's got to be a better way, because at this point people are just going to do whatever they're going to do anyway, and there's going to be no oversight unless they just take away that kind of legal streaming forever. But it's either here nor there. These two are going to rematch anyway. Excited to talk about it more when the date is officially announced, but just thought it was an interesting story that was not being covered enough as well. All right, now we're gonna move into a big, big, big fight this weekend. So the UFC had an off week this past week. Now they're in with 5 straight shows in the month of June, beginning with UFC 302, headlined by Islam Makhachev versus Dustin Poirier for the lightweight championship. I am so excited for this fight. This is Dustin Poirier's third crack at the UFC title. This is Islam Makhachev's first true test against a real natural lightweight. You have to remember he beat Charles Oliveira, and then of course he won back-to-back fights. The second one being a near 2 week notice bout against Alexander Volkanovski, who was the featherweight champion at the time and is now the former UFC featherweight champion. So this is Makhachev's first true test at the weight where he actually has the title. And I'm gonna admit it. I took Islam Makhachev on MMA Outsiders. You can go check it out. Episode 85. It aired yesterday, 7 Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. Shout out to Brett Cagle for filling in with me to talk about all things combat sports. But I think that this fight for Dustin Poirier, not only is it the biggest fight of his career, but this is one of those fights where I think there are so many people. I've read Instagram threads, I've read X threads, I've read threads on Reddit. I think the entire world wants to see Dustin Poirier do this. And the reason is because in 2010, he was in a documentary. It was called Fightville, I think. And he said when he was 21 that he was going to be champion of the world. And this is now his third time doing so. He's in his mid 30s now. He's fought a who's who list of the best lightweights in the world. This isn't just another fight, but I can guarantee you this will be Islam Makhachev's toughest fight. And this is coming from someone who thought that Volkanovski would be Makhachev's toughest fight. I just think this fight can go multiple ways. If this fight stays on the feet, I think the advantage is Poirier's. He's the better kickboxer, but if this thing hits the floor, I think Makhachev will be able to do whatever he wants to him. And I think the earlier this fight goes, the better off it favors Poirier. But I just think that Sambo wrestling, that Dagestani base that those guys have, where they can just go in and maul you. They take you down, they maul you, they do whatever they want, they can stay on top of you for several minutes. It's just going to be too much. And Poirier, and I know it's becoming a meme on the internet, but if Dustin Poirier jumps the guillotine, I think it's going to be a mistake because Makhachev's going to get out of it. He's more than likely going to mount him, and he's more than likely going to finish him. So I'm rooting for Poirier, and man, I hope it happens because there's a lot of layers. If he does win, who he could end up fighting next? Is it McGregor, Chandler, Tarzuki, and whatever? But to me, Makhachev is just the better all-around fighter. He'll defend his lightweight championship, and hopefully, assuming he isn't too banged up, hopefully, assuming this is the route he takes, that Dustin Poirier can ride off into the sunset. Just as a reminder, too, we have another 5-round co-main event between Sean Strickland and Paulo Costa, as well as a loaded undercard. 12 fights on the card. It all kicks off at 6 p.m. Eastern, followed by the main prelims at 8 p.m. Eastern, and then the pay-per-view, which you can pick up right now on ESPN Plus, begins at 10 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Pacific. And those of you who purchased it, those of you who purchased it on Monday or before Monday will receive a discount of $10 off. So just something to keep in mind. But UFC 302 this weekend from the Prudential Center, Newark, New Jersey, June 1st, only on pay-per-view. All right, now we're gonna move on to a sport that I think a lot of people are missing. By the time this airs, we're gonna have 14 Sunday. For oh well, actually, yeah. Let's get into this. So, the UFL is winding down its regular season, and slowly but surely, we are going to be getting into postseason action. So, I just wanted to quickly go through the results of the Week 9 scoreboard. We had 4 games, 2 on Saturday and 2 on Sunday. We had the Arlington Renegades, who are clearly out of postseason contention, upset the St. Louis Battlehawks. The final score there was 36-22. We have the best team in the UFL, the Birmingham Stallions, get upset by the San Antonio Brahmas, who clinched a playoff spot a couple weeks ago. We have the Michigan Panthers take care of business in a close game, 26-22 over the Houston Roughnecks, who only have 1 win on the season. And then in a battle of 2 non-playoff contending teams, the DC Defenders held off the Memphis Showboats 36-21. So we have a couple of weeks left in the regular season. We're going to go over what the games are for this weekend across ESPN, ABC, and Fox. So at 2 p.m. Eastern, we have the Michigan Panthers taking on the Birmingham Stallions. So there's a good chance that the Birmingham Stallions will just finish in first place and win their division there. We got the San Antonio Brahmas taking on the St. Louis Battlehawks shortly after that. That'll be at 4 p.m. Eastern on Fox. And then on Sunday, we've got a battle of 2 non-playoff contending teams, so the game doesn't matter. Noon Eastern, DC Defenders, Arlington Renegades, and then, of course, the final game of the UFL regular season, the inaugural regular season. This is a bit unfortunate from a scheduling perspective. I'm sure Fox regrets this, but the worst game that they could possibly put at 7 p.m. Eastern, the Houston Roughnecks versus the Memphis Showboats, as both teams are sitting respectively at 1-8. Going into, just wanted to remind you guys again, the semifinal games are Saturday, June 8th and Sunday, June 9th. Those are 3 p.m. Eastern and 7 p.m. Eastern on ABC for the first one, Fox for the second one, and then the finals from St. Louis, Sunday, June 16th at 5 p.m. Eastern. And then, of course, you won't know who's going to play because we got to wait for the XFL and the USFL championship games to be played. As I went over those last week, and those should be very exciting as well. So that is a brief overview of the UFL for week number 9. All right, and then we're going to get into Zain Zinger, which is going to be very exciting because, of course, because he always is in the news. Conor McGregor is back in the news again. A video surfaced over the weekend of him partying with Devlin, who's been his longtime partner, and it shows him having the time of his life. Don't know where the video took place or what club it was at, but just as a reminder, on the day that this comes out, we will have exactly 1 month until the fight. That's right. June 29th is the day of the event. That's the day that Conor McGregor will be making his long-awaited return to the UFC against Michael Chandler. And this is really disappointing, to be quite honest with you. I mean, I thought that, Conor McGregor was taking himself seriously based on the training footage that he had been posting, based on some of the small interviews he had done. And this is just really disappointing because it seems like he's reverting back into the same Conor McGregor that we saw before the Khabib Nurmagomedov fight, before the third Dustin Poirier fight, specifically the one where he just wasn't fully focused and fully 100%. I'm just going to make this clear. I don't care what professional athletes do outside of their sport, but what I do care about is when the UFC has all of this financial backing towards this fight. It's the biggest gate of all time. 20 plus $1 million. The cheapest ticket is $1,000 plus to get in. The expectation is that Conor McGregor is going to show up to Las Vegas the week of June 24th, ready to go. People have not been, people are not, um, how do I say this? People aren't just tuning into UFC 303 to watch and experience UFC 303. Everybody's tuning in to see how Conor McGregor's comeback is going to look. And if you who have him doing this kind of stuff, in the midst of the most critical training camp of his entire career, that's an ultra huge problem, and something that I don't think a lot of people are taking seriously. Because if you look at Michael Chandler, all he's doing is hard sparring. All Michael Chandler cares about is knocking Conor McGregor out into the stratosphere. All this guy has ever done for the last year and a half is call this guy out every chance he could. WWE interviews, UFC appearances with fans. Every chance he's gotten, he's called Conor McGregor. He's even called out Conor McGregor when I picked against Michael Chandler ahead of this Conor McGregor fight when I made my prediction over a month ago. So he feels like the odds are stacked against him, and the last thing he wants to see is himself not fighting Conor McGregor when they are supposed to fight. So I guess my only piece of advice for Conor McGregor is look at what all the fans are saying about you. We care that you make it to this fight as safely and as healthy as you can. And all we want to see is you fight. We haven't seen you fight in almost 3 years. The last thing we want to see is you not fighting. So just please be wary of the. And if you're gonna go and do that stuff, just do everything in moderation. Is all I really ask of you. All right, so we're gonna go into Zain's look ahead. We sort of already went through the NHL and NBA post season earlier in the show. So given the interest of time, we're gonna skip that, but we are going to go into my way too early NFL over under win total projections. And for those of you who don't know, these over under win total projections are already out, so I'm going to give them to you here courtesy of Yahoo Sports. And this is interesting because we have, I think, 14 Sundays until the NFL season officially gets underway. So it's never too early to start talking about everybody's favorite sport in the fall, or at least I don't think so. All right, so we're gonna get into this here, and let's see. Oh my god. Actually, we'll use a. Okay, here we go. All right, so according to, all right, so according, we're actually just gonna use ESPN because it's easier. Okay, so according to ESPN's NFL over under win totals, and again, I'm only going to go through a couple of teams in the interest of how much time that we have. But the San Francisco 49ers, who lost the Super Bowl to the Kansas City Chiefs, as we all know, the over under projection, according to ESPN, is 11 and a half wins. I think with who they have returning and with the amount of star power they have, seems like an easy walk for an over there. Kansas City Chiefs, same thing. Just so you know, the odds for them winning the Super Bowl, the 49ers are sitting at plus 500 and the Chiefs are sitting at plus 650. So if you want some nice pocket change for a potential Super Bowl winning bet, I would get on those as soon as possible. Let's take a look at some other ones. The Detroit Lions, a team that everybody's talking about. They let's see, the over under win total was set at 10 and a half. Super Bowl winning projection is a plus 1100. So just something to keep in mind. The Bears obviously now have Caleb Williams. The Packers return Jordan Love, and of course the Vikings have a lot of quarterback questions as to whether or not Sam Darnold is going to be the guy, or if it's going to be or if it's going to be JJ McCarthy potentially starting in his place, which I think in retrospect, um, though it's kind of a bummer because if you think about it, I thought Kirk Cousins was always the guy, and I never thought he'd go to Atlanta. So that's going to be interesting. So just keeping that in mind, we're going to skip over a couple of these. All right, so this is a big one. My producer's favorite team, the New York ATS Jets, or over under win total projection is at 9.5. Mike Clay's projection for them is 11.7 wins. I just see too many difficult games on the schedule, especially at the second half of the year, for me to justify this total hitting. But definitely, if Aaron Rodgers stays healthy, this is a playoff contending team. And then, of course, we're going to go into one more. We're going to go into one more projection. The Pittsburgh Steelers with Russell Wilson. Mike Clay has been going under 8.5 wins here. Yeah, it's going to be too hard. The AFC North still has the Ravens. It's going to be a dogfight in that division. They're definitely a fringe wild card team. But with there being 14 weeks till the NFL season begins, I'm going to keep going through. I'll give you my full NFL way too early over under win total projections in future weeks, but just wanted to give you guys a little bit of a flavor as to what those looked like as I'm sure many of you cannot wait for the NFL season to start, as the dead period of the summer in sports is more than likely around the corner. All right, now we're going to move into the final couple of segments here. Going to go into Zain's errors. I don't think I had any this week from what I understand.
So I'll give you one. By the way, good show. By the way, this was very good.
Thank you.
But I found the club because you were asking about it, Zan, for Conor McGregor. It's the Black Forge in Dublin.
Okay, so it's the one he owns. I wasn't sure if he was in his club or a different club, but it's good to know that it's actually the one he owns, which is good. Okay.
I mean, at least it's non-liability only on himself and nobody else. So I guess you could say that's good. But yeah, that otherwise good show as usual. That's the only thing I found. It's not really an error. It's more of a clerical thing.
Oh, so thank you for clarifying that. And for those of you who don't know, the Black Forge Inn is Conor McGregor's own club that he started a couple of years ago after the venture of Proper 12 Irish Whiskey. So there's a good nugget there. Thanks again. I really appreciate it.
Yep.
All right, guys. So with that being said, that's going to wrap it up for another edition of Bando's Breakdowns. This has been episode 6. And again, I just wanted to thank you guys so much for tuning in as we are wrapping up the month of May and moving into the month of June in sports. If you like the content that you saw today, again, be sure to like and subscribe to the Empty the Bench podcast network at youtube.com/ETB network. Again, we are slowly but surely approaching 1,000 subscribers. Of course, you can check out etbpodcast.com for more great blogs from some of our contributors across multiple different sports. So stay tuned for more content to come there. And of course, as I mentioned at the beginning of the show, I'm going to mention at the end of the show as well. You can listen to Bando's Breakdowns wherever you get your podcast. And with that being said, my name is Zain Bando. Thank you again for tuning into another edition of Bando's Breakdowns. We will see you back here next week for episode 7. More to be determined in regards to the date of when that will air. But until then, enjoy the rest of your week, the rest of the week in sports and the weekend. And I will see you guys very soon. Have a good one.